The historical relationship between, reggae music and hip-hop music, and what role that history played in the making of this record, and whether or not the title has anything to do with that idea.
Yeah, I think like Jamaican music and hip-hop music were doing a lot to the people in New York City, where I grew up, in the 80s. In the 80s, at the same time I'm hearing early hip-hop records. I'm hearing like a lot of early reggae records. They have a lot of similarities. The artists both come from similar situations, and politically or just the conditions of their lives, we're very similar. You know what I'm saying? Those two different artists. And the music of it was hard. The drums was hard, bass lines was hard. And it was just like they went right along with each other. Also, one of the pioneers of hip hop, Kool Herc, Jamaican. He brought his whole culture to New York City. He's one of the guys who, pioneered hip hop. So it's always been like side by side.
Junior,
yeah, in the same sense as what Nas was saying, the cultures are very similar and come from the same class of people, if you will, They're both very honest expressions, and they're both a voice for that class of people, in that kind of case. So, yeah, and everything else I'm saying, I agree.
Thank you, gentlemen. As I understand it, I know Dan Dalton fairly well. He and I go back for some years. You guys didn't plan for this to be an album. First I heard rumors of an EP, and Dan let me know, they're in the studio and it's feeling really good, and I think this is going to be an album. This wasn't a slated record. You guys are both on major labels. You have, contracts to fulfill and whatnot. You got solo records coming out, I know. And so this record was kind of like a passion project, and I wanted you to sort of talk about how you ended up deciding to make this full-length album, which I think is a phenomenal record. It's beautiful. There's a lot of time and effort and energy. There's a lot of heart. There's a lot of heart in the record. And so, where did that come from? What happened?
Don't be shy.
Started off really, being fans of each other's music. Tell you the truth, That's really the root and where everything really come from. A lot of everything else that happened for the project is just serendipity, things that ended up happening to be coincidental and fall into place that were perfect in terms of what we're doing. Everything was in the same line. For example, it started out with the idea from our management teams for us to do an EP on Africa, 3 to 4 tracks. And in working on the album, we decided that on the EP, we decided we wanted to make it become an album. And even within the title, Distant Relatives, after a while we started to think of things like, well, yeah, hip-hop and reggae are distant relatives. And we started to see even obviously the common root with all people and Africa and how everything tied in together, So this thing, I guess you could say destiny was slated for this record, It wasn't something that was in our conscious, our focus, but it's something that we both feel it was just, that happened. We didn't fight it, we just went with the energy.
Mr. Jones, you concur?
I concur.
All right, I'm gonna just do my DJ thing real quick. I have a couple of favorite songs on the record. You guys have Kanan collaborating on the record. I kind of wanted to talk about, big up. I wanted to talk about how you connected with him in the studio and recorded with him, and he's bringing a lot of flavor to some of the music. And I just wanted to sort of have you tell that story about Kanan and the collab.
Well, I met Kanan from, I was introduced to him by D, and they had already been working. And to me, it was great to meet another artist. We were making a record about Africa, but to have the perspective from an African artist was real good, because it enlightened me on like a lot of the real. It was like close up, more close up than BBC. what he's talking about, you know what I mean? He's giving you the first-hand story, you know? And just to have him involved was big.
Junior, go.
Well, Keenan actually had a lot to do with the creation of this project, you know, in an indirect way, because part of the reason why, you know, Dan came up with the idea of us doing something about Africa was because we had a track that was a demo, which ended up becoming Africa Must Wake Up on this album, which was with Keenan, you know what I mean, which, you know, it never was released, obviously, and it was just sitting there. So that was, knowing that we had that music there was part of the reason why we're saying let's go with the theme of Africa, you know what I mean. So Keenan played a great part in this album, even indirectly in that way. It was a great inspiration toward the making of this album.
That would sort of answer my next question. It was specific because one of my favorite songs on the record is actually Jason Bentley had pointed out the song to me because it's like the last track on the record.